We've covered some methods of additive lighting using reflectors. But equally as important when working outside and on location is subtractive lighting. In 1983, this book was published that featured 4 well-known photographers of the day. Each wrote a section about techniques that they were experts in. Leon Kennemer wrote about subtractive lighting. I had never seen that before, and it opened my eyes to a whole new concept of light control. The sky is the usual source of soft illumination for portraits, but its direction needs to be controlled. Here are some examples of how to control light from coming from too high of an angle. When I photographed this back in 1996, I didn't understand the need to subtract top light. I thought that by adding my reflector below her, it would always add enough low main or fill to lighten dark eyes and other shadows. Well, first of all, the reflector wasn't reflecting enough light to do that. Second, that isn't the only thing that has to be done when there's a strong directional top light.
This may be the only time I wanted eye bags to show. Light coming from straight above doesn't look good for people. So we need to find a way to force the light to only come from in front and slightly above the face.
Let's begin the discussion of subtractive lighting by looking for natural objects to block overhead lighting. Starting with this photograph of a girl in a clearing, we can see the detrimental effects of strong overhead light from an overcast sky. The amount of fill into her eyes is determined by what's in front of her. If she's looking at a tree or building or even just a dark area of the sky, she'll have raccoon eyes just like this. But this is what we want. How do we get it? By putting them under a tree or anything else that blocks overhead light. Standing in the same spot that she was, we can see that the tree leaves blocked light coming from straight down, yet leaving lower light that properly illuminates the front of the face.
I think this is a pretty dramatic example of the problem. And the solution. Sometimes we'll be lucky enough to find nature or human-made tunnels that make for great facial light. That bush in the distance behind her will certainly afford better lighting than placing her out in the open like this. This has the typical top light flaws of a bright nose and dark eyes. Backing her under that tunnel fixed the problem, with no Photoshop fixing required.
So look for trees or bushes to act as a natural blocker for subtracting light. If you have a sidewalk under the subject as there is here, there's no need to do anything else. Just shoot.
Just thought I would do a video on lighting. What I usually look for is a tree like this that has overhanging branches, and then when we walk under the tree, we've got a beautiful opening of light in that direction. And we've got a fill reflector from the driveway, so this would be a great place to shoot. Let's turn around and face the other way, and if we back up a little bit, we've got an opening in the sky for an accent light. And this is the very pleasant result of that ideal lighting situation. This is where the next shot will be done, next to a park building. It has a light blocking tree to the side and overhead. Okay, you can see the good lighting there, so let's show what that lighting looks like from his position. Here we got a bright spot in the sky right there, a reflector down here, perfect background, perfect subject, we're good to go. I intensified the wall texture with some Nick tonal contrast.
Because most of the locations that I shoot in are either too cluttered or just inappropriate to include in the image, I'm more of a telephoto guy than a wide-angle shooter. So when I'm looking for a portrait location, I typically see a narrow view. I see lots of good things here, something to block the top light and lighting that has the potential for a great image.
See, I told you. I used a 200mm lens with a 2x converter, and I used it wide open, so that was effectively shooting at f5.6. So this was an ideal lighting situation, and I'll show you where it was done. It's really rare to find this perfect combination of great light and great location.
So this is where I did that photograph, and as you can see, we've got an interesting combination of main light, subtractive lighting from the tree branches. Got a nice directional source there, and on this side of the tree we've got an opening in the sky which creates the accent on the side of the face. So backing up, we'll show you again about what it looks like. A top shader or a gobo can be a natural thing like a tree, or it can be a man-made structure. And from her point of view, this shows the light that's in front of her. As you can see, that location gave me good natural lighting for a nice yearbook pose. Porches work very well for side lighting the subject since there's usually also a lot of frontal and fill light. The roof of the porch blocks the top light while letting light come in from the side. And a 300mm f2.8 lens completes the look by isolating the subject and narrowing the view of the background. In this example, we have high and hard light coming from the openings in the columns. Not very flattering. But simply moving her behind the column, just out of the hard light, gave us a higher key and a more pleasing image. Inside of that dark hole, there was an interesting background. I placed her in there, close to the opening, and receiving lots of light. But the background is farther from the opening, so it's pretty dark. Positioning her farther back, she's away from the light from the opening. Less light will be on her, and consequently the background will appear brighter, because of the amount of light falling on the two is closer to the same.